Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff like that. And I am, of course, joined by lots of good stuff in the form of Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, every time I see you wear that vest, I get ghibli again. Or that hoodie. It makes me ghibli, dude.
I figured, I've been getting a lot of use out of this vest, out of this jacket, but I figured, there are a number of Avengers Endgame topics, some box office records being broken, all that sort of stuff, so I thought I would don it one more time. And also joining us, of course, is Miss Ashley Whalen. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm great. I think you should don it every day this week. Don't take that thing off.
I think I
don't
should
take it
go
off
to bed.
Yeah, 3 months from now.
I should go sleep in it. I take my showers in it. It's just my security blanket.
I
and then I'll be
loved
done with
Anne's post, by the way. Her rings were
Oh,
on
with the
point.
thing?
Yeah, those were cool.
Wasn't that great? Actually,
Yeah.
Brie Larson liked her post.
Really? Yeah.
Well,
That's
because
awesome.
she posted in Brie Larson's timeline where Brie Larson was doing her picture. So Anne put her picture in the same timeline and Brie Larson liked it, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hey, listen, guys, speaking about Avengers Endgame, we do have a few things to go off the top here before we get started. And the one thing we got to start with this is the box office numbers for Avengers Endgame are already starting to roll in. It's already opened in China with its opening weekend. Now, you have to understand this, putting this into context. The opening night record for the Chinese box office was a movie called Monster Hunter 2, I believe. Mm-hmm. And Monster Hunter 2 made $59 million in its opening night, which is quite big. It was the record for a Chinese opening night. Well, Avengers Endgame has beat that by nearly double. Avengers Endgame has opened to $102 million on opening night in China, almost doubling, not quite doubling, but it is a significant smashing, absolute devastation of the previous record, $100 million for the Chinese opening. Rob, you saw this number. You and I were just starting to chat about this a little earlier. This, of course, just hit about a half hour ago or so. But, what do you think the significance of this? Does it surprise you at all? I mean, I think a lot of us expected records to be broken, but in China, this type of a number is absolutely astronomical, is it not?
It's astronomical. I mean, it's absolutely huge. I earlier saw what was the second biggest opening film in Chinese history, which was The Wandering Earth.
Right.
And it was a very apocalyptic disaster film, but it was full of emotional wallop and melodrama and things that really play. And it made me, when I read these numbers this morning, I was thinking, Avengers Endgame, it's a pretty emotional movie with all of the action and adventure and the things that happen. It still has a lot of emotional resonance. I think not just China, but the entire Asian market is just going to devour this movie. I think we're going to see records drop, whether it's in Korea, whether it's in Japan. I mean, this film is going to sweep through Asia, and I think that's a great thing. I mean, it speaks to the power of this franchise and these characters and what they've done at Marvel Studios, and it's just going to be a juggernaut. And after having seen it with you yesterday, I mean, I understand, man, that this movie just delivers, and it delivers on a worldwide scale.
Well, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But again, I think I don't want people just to miss this. This wasn't just breaking a record. Records get broken all the time.
Sure.
Records get broken all the time. And eventually this one will get broken too. This was an absolute smashing of the record. Like to go from 59 million to 102 million, something we've never seen before. I mean, I told you about a month ago, I really do believe that Avengers Endgame will pass Titanic for the number 2 all-time worldwide box office film. I seeing numbers like this, it only really affirms it. I still don't think it'll catch Avatar. I still don't think it'll catch Avatar at 2.7, almost 2.8 billion. So it has a long way to go to get that. But I feel pretty confident it's going to get. Do you, at this point, when you see a number like this in China, though, does it make you reassess how high it could go? Do you think it has a chance of catching Avatar?
You know what? I do. I honestly do. Because, I think I liked it a little bit more than you did. But I was just stunned by this movie. And I was stunned from the opening scene.
Well, let's not go into that. That's coming a little bit later. That's coming a little bit later.
But what I think here's what if a movie delivers an experience, and people it's all about repeat viewing. And even the most jaded critics, the response to this movie has been, even Jeffrey Wells, Hollywood Elsewhere, who's kind of a curmudgeon of a guy, but I read him every day. I've been reading him for a quarter century, who doesn't traditionally like comic book movies. Even he liked this movie. And I'm like, it's like when Empire Strikes Back came out, people said, well, even Harlan Ellison likes Empire Strikes Back because he famously hated Star Wars. I think this movie I think it gives an experience to people. As I said on my Twitter, I said, this stuck the landing the way the Eagle stuck Tranquility Base in 1969 when we first landed on the moon. I mean, that's the kind of,
but don't get into we'll get into our Avengers, the movie discussion in just a little bit. I just think
it provides an experience people desperately want now. You know,
the only question I have though, is it $700 million more than Infinity War? I mean, because let's not forget, Infinity War delivered that experience. Infinity War had everybody buzzing. Infinity War had everybody jumping up and down their seats. Infinity War had everybody talking for days and weeks and months. And here we are. Can this one do 700 million more? You think it can?
Yes, because I cried 7 times in this movie, and I involuntarily.
Again, let's not go into your experience with the movie, because that's got to come later. Hold your horses.
But that plays into how much money this movie is going to make. This movie is going to make tons of money because it people are getting what they wanted from it, and I think they're going to continue.
I just think 700 million more. I think equaling Infinity War. And then going another 700 million. Like, people were so dissatisfied with Infinity War that they left 700 million on the table.
I know.
I don't know. That seems like a tall. Passing Titanic, that I see it doing pretty easily. But it's going to be interesting to see how close it gets to that. All right. With that down, let's move on to another little thing of off the top here. You know, there's another movie that a lot of people are talking about coming out here, and we've talked about it a little bit here on the show recently, and that's Detective Pikachu. And now, Rob, you and I have been talking about this. I've had a roller coaster ride with the Detective Pikachu, and the movie hasn't even come out yet. I had absolutely no interest in the movie. Then the trailers came out, and all of a sudden I was really excited to see Detective Pikachu. Then we saw the scene they showed us at CinemaCon, and I didn't like it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. So my enthusiasm came down. Well, there have been a couple of screenings now of Detective Pikachu, and the initial reactions for Detective Pikachu are now rolling out online, and they're very, very good. Let's take a look at some of them here. Dan Casey from Nerdist writes, Detective Pikachu is a pure joy from start to finish. It's a heartfelt, relentlessly charming story filled with excellent world building, plenty of deep cuts for Pokemon fans. There must have been a grass type in this theater because I got surprisingly misty-eyed in parts. Wow. Paul Shirley from Joe Blow writes, had a fun time with Detective Pikachu, silly, heartfelt, and chock full of Pokemon, which makes for some great world building in what is sure to spin off into one hell of a franchise. Perfectly suited for fans and non-fans alike. Mariah Aiken from the AV Club writes, my reactions to Detective Pikachu, so cute, fun for the whole family. Pokemon obsessives will be pleased, but Poke novices will also be able to follow along and will maybe even get stuck or sucked into the whole world. In summary, I want to cuddle Pikachu. And Ian DeBorgia, he writes, from IMDb writes, Pikachu is painfully cute, jam-packed with action, and will make you wish you lived in the world of Pokemon more than you probably already do. Now, there were a number of other reactions as well, but they all basically fell under this category. The one thing that I kind of noticed about most of them was, if you love Pokemon, blah, blah, blah. If you love Pokemon, blah, blah. And not a whole lot about what if you don't start from loving Pokemon? Where's that? But still, overwhelmingly, the reaction to this has been very, very positive. And they've been highlighting the things that I think the trailers kind of showed us and suggested to us. Fun, humor, cute, adorable, all that kind of stuff rolled into one. And it sounds like maybe a little bit more heartfelt than we were maybe expecting. Rob, you hear these reactions coming out. Did they surprise you? What are you thinking about these?
Well, no, I mean, look, from our initial, apparently our initial impressions of this movie were correct. I mean, I like the idea of the world building and the fact that there's this world being portrayed where the Pokemon are real. And I liked all that. And of course, Ryan Reynolds is sort of irresistible. But the scene we saw, like you, it was a little, I guess, obtuse. It just is a word. It wasn't, but hearing these reactions, I'm glad that the overall film turned out to be this way, because while I don't expect it to be the hard-boiled detective thriller that Who Framed Roger Rabbit was, it's nice to know that this kind of a fantasy film, I love the conceit of it, and to have it work as well as it seems to, at least according to these initial reviews, is great. It keeps my interest peaked. I want to go see
Pikachu.
it. Yeah, I definitely want to go see it now, and I my enthusiasm now is back to where it was after these first couple of trailers dropped. So that's good.
Ashley, you're hearing, you've seen the trailers, Ashley. You're hearing now these responses. Where is your anticipation level for like a Detective Pikachu right now?
It's not like all-time high, but after hearing those reviews for the first time, I'm definitely interested, and I will go see it in the theater. And I loved the trailer that I saw, so and I never was that big into Pikachu, so I was surprised that I liked it so much. So I am gonna definitely see this one.
And that's the interesting thing. I'm still really curious. Now, there was a couple of mentions in some of them saying, and hey, even if you're not really grew up into Pokemon all that much, it might be for you too. But that's the one question mark I'm coming away with out of these responses is, okay, but what if you're not into Pokemon? Because we've seen franchise films that have come out that's like, even if you're not into that franchise, these movies will capture you. You know what I mean? And I'm just wondering how that will be. It'll be interesting to going into that movie to watch it as somebody who has, like, even when I was a kid, never had any interest in Pokemon, never had anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this movie catches me. But I hope you're right, Rob, that those initial impressions we got from those trailers is what we actually see on the screen, because that was pretty impressive. The fact that it won over people like you and me who've never really been into it.
Well, I think what's interesting about this film is they've created, even if you don't know anything about Pokemon, the idea that there's a world where creatures like this exist, and they're all around us, and it creates a fantasy scenario that sort of is irresistible from a viewing standpoint. Like, whenever we see futuristic worlds or fantasy medieval worlds, it's the world that becomes the attraction as well as the story being told. And I kind of feel the way about this movie. Like, I saw these trailers and they're like, okay, what if the world was inundated with Pokemon? Like, what would that be like? And even if I don't know much about the Pokemon franchise and I didn't really watch the animated show, I was a little too old, but the premise of this movie made me go, okay, I want to see what happens in a world like that. And I think that's what most... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it reminds me a lot of Happy Time Murders, which a lot of people didn't like, but I thought was freaking hilarious. I loved imagine the world where the Muppets, these puppets, actually live amongst us, and you're kind of now juxtaposing that with Pokemon, and it could be really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing it. So too. And I'm really happy to hear these reviews, because I got, again, my enthusiasm for it took a hit when we saw that scene at CinemaCon, because it just didn't feel, it wasn't funny, it didn't have humor, didn't have flow to it, but maybe they just picked a bad scene, so I'm really excited to hear these initial responses for it. Okay, guys.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll like a fun movie, and I'm like a mystery junkie, so if they do a good job with the script and the story, and like the characters are already cute as hell, so I think it's going to be great.
All right, guys. Well, listen, what do you guys think? You're hearing these responses now. How does this affect your enthusiasm for Detective Pikachu? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that stuff down and out of the way, guys, we're going to move on now to our main topics of the day. How do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys pick them by going to our website, www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it on out and hit submit. And maybe, just maybe, you might see your message as one of the main topics here on the John Campea Show. With that down and out of the way, Ashley, what is our first main topic today?
All right, guys. First one up is from Frank Barone. Hey, John, I know you're a big Ben Affleck fan, so I wanted your thoughts on the news that he's doing a new film called Ghost Army. It looks like he's going to direct and star in it, and there's even word that he's going to rework the script as well. Do you think a project like this one can get him back into his Argo the Town groove?
I really hope so, because you're right. I am an unabashed, unapologetic big Ben Affleck fan. I've liked this guy for so long. Ever since this very, very underrated film he did with Samuel Jackson years ago called Changing Lanes. That I think is massively underappreciated, massively underrated. I thought it was a really great character study, and I thought it was great dynamics, and I thought his performance, it's the movie that I saw him in that I went, wow, he's becoming a pretty damn good actor. Now, he had a bit of a slide too and everything, but as a filmmaker, this guy has crushed it out of the park. Now, this, I think, is based on a true story. We know this. Here's basically the rundown. If you don't know anything about Ghost Army and the project, here's a rundown from Variety. The film tells the true story of a squadron of recruits from art schools, ad agencies, and other creative businesses who were tasked with fooling the Nazis into thinking that the U.S. had larger troop numbers than it actually did. The book follows a group of young GIs, including fashion designer Bill Blass, painter Ellsworth Kelly, artist Arthur Singer, photographer Art Kane, and others who conduct a secret mission. Their job was to create a traveling roadshow of deception, armed with inflatable tanks and sound effects. This sounds like a fantastic piece of fiction. This sounds like a fantastic just piece of fake something somebody would come out. You know what it reminds me of a little bit, Rob? It reminds me a little bit of Wag the Dog. It's got a little. I can't help but wonder if maybe Wag the Dog took a little bit of influence. Now, the script was written before, and they're saying Ben Affleck is not only going to direct and star, they're saying he's going to take another pass on the script. Now, the original script was written by Nick Pizzolatto, who wrote the first season of True Detective for HBO, and then had a refresh on it by Henry Graydon, who did the screenplay for Shazam. So now it looks like Ben Affleck's going to go in and do they're not saying it's going to be a page one rewrite. They're just saying it's going to be a little bit of a touch-up. I got to tell you, Rob, this sounds to me exactly like the kind of movie that, number one, Ben Affleck should be doing right now, and number two, the type of movie I think Ben Affleck would be perfect at. It's because it also has, when I listen to the description, it's got I don't know, I get a little bit of a sense of an Argo in there too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when you're talking about all that, I think this sounds fabulous. And the best news of all this is, and I don't want to read too much into it, and I don't want to look too far ahead on it, but the best part about this is that does this suggest to us too that Ben is starting to get, his life a little bit back together? And when you're suffering with addictions like he does, that's a lifelong battle. You've never conquered it. It's a lifelong battle. We understand that, but to me, it's kind of positive to hear that he's working again. He's got projects on the go, and to me, this one sounds fabulous. What do you think about it?
Well, I like you do. I'm a huge, or like you are. I'm a huge fan of Ben Affleck. I always have been. He's in this career for the long haul. He's had his ups and downs. I mean, he survived being in Geely and a relationship with Jennifer Lopez, and there are pressures on people like Ben Affleck that we just don't understand. Your life is being led in the public eye, and despite all that, he became a world-class filmmaker, directing those 4 films. I'm a huge admirer of what he did with Live by Night. While I don't think it was entirely successful, really, really still a very good movie.
I thought it was better than people gave it credit for.
Very much so. I do too. And going from Gone Baby Gone, The Town, to Argo, to Live by Night, the guy is a world-class filmmaker. And he also has to navigate what it's like to be a father, what it's like to be married to another actress, and all the craziness. We all have craziness in our life, but imagine it's tabloid fodder. I mean, that just amps up the level of pressure on you, and then despite that, he busts his ass to be Batman. Everyone says he's the best Batman that we've ever seen on the screen, and the movies underperform. So all the work that he did as Batman gets slagged off on by the very community that's supposed to embrace it, in addition to everything else he's doing. So it's great to see him come back. Now, is this based on a true story? Do we know?
I think it is actually based on a true story.
A true story. Like Argo, what a crazy... I love this idea. Like, it's kind of like you said, it's very similar to Argo in that the military, in this case, the intelligence apparatus of the United States, came up with this cockamamie scheme to sort of deceive the enemy in order to rescue people or to get troops in. I mean, I love this idea. I'd never heard this story before, but I mean, people like Arthur Singer, like, it's crazy that you forget all of these people that later went on to be famous when they came back from World War II. They were all fighting in the war, just like many filmmakers did. Like William Wyler. I mean, it's just crazy. And wow, right up his alley. I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, I think this sounds exciting. I cannot wait. Guys, what do you think about the sounds of this? Are you happy he's doing something like this? Were you hoping he'd come back as Batman? I know I was, but we knew that wasn't going to happen. But anyway, jump down in the comments section and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, Ashley, what is our next main topic today?
Next up is from Aaron Atkins. With Missing Link being a flop and releasing so close to Endgame while having to compete with Captain Marvel and Shazam, do you think that the excitement and adrenaline-inducing entertainment from superhero movies has reduced people's interest in movies like Missing Link? As you've said before, Laika makes good stuff but hasn't had much to show for it. Are audiences just uninterested in that kind of film right now?
Here's the thing. We talked a little while ago, Rob, about, Missing Link. It opened very low. But if we're going to ask the question, does like the anticipation of a movie like Endgame directly responsible for like the underperformance and let's call it what it is, the flopping of Missing Link, despite the fact that from all word, it's supposed to be quite a good movie? I think you have to take a couple things into consideration when talking about that, though. Number one, remember, going into Missing Link, I had some major reservations about how it was going to perform because while I like Laika Studios very much, the trailers did nothing for me. I didn't think they were horrible or bad or anything. It's just that I didn't get 1 ounce of spark of interest and a fire to get out and see. It just gave me nothing to be interested into seeing it. And also, you got to keep in mind this. As we brought up in a chart last week, talking about these Laika films, none of them do particularly well. Like, none of them opened a big, giant box office. I think the biggest opening weekend one ever had was like 18 or 19 million or close there too. So it's not like this one was far off. So I think when you're looking at something like Missing Link, and I love this graphic that Ray put together.
Yeah, it's great.
When you look at something like Missing Link, and you're talking about, well, why did it underperform? Yeah, there is a context in which, well, it's close to Endgame, but you have to look at the other prevailing context. Number one, the marketing didn't do anything to get people interested in it. Number two, none of the Laika films have ever done particularly well. They're all really good, but none of them done particularly exceedingly what we would call blockbuster numbers at the box office. So now then on top of that, we'll look at other films that are opening. Shazam continues to do pretty well. It's now crossed 300 million. It's safely profitable. La Llorona, which traditionally wouldn't be a huge opening film, but opened with like $26 million. And that's like the week before Endgame comes out. So to be honest with you, no, I don't see any empirical data to suggest to us that people are going to fewer movies around Endgame because of Endgame. Now, look, everybody's going to go to a limited number of movies. If you go to one movie, that lessens your chance you can go to another. Yes, that's true. But I don't see anything at play here going above and beyond that normal pattern. You know what I mean? When we're seeing other films doing as well as we would expect them to do, when we're seeing a film that is failing, having a lot of other circumstances that would probably contribute to the fact that it's not doing so well financially, I really don't think Endgame is playing a big part in that, Rob. Am I oversimplifying it? Am I not looking at the big picture? How do you see it?
No, I mean, I think you're correct. I don't think necessarily that one movie's failure can be blamed on the marketplace or well, maybe not so much the marketplace, but other movies. I'm with you. I think that there was, in my experience, this movie just didn't have any snap to it. I mean, Missing Link, I think, first of all, I'm not really interested in that subject matter right now, and like you said, the trailers didn't grab us. They weren't, it was kind of bland, and it shouldn't have been. And I don't know why that is. But I want to point out, like I said before, I think that Laika Studios is well-financed. And what they have done, and I haven't seen Missing Link, so I'm talking out of my ass about this particular film, but they've all of those movies have been very respectable, very beautifully made films that have a lot of heart to them. And ultimately, they're building a very valuable library that any one of these streaming services could eventually come in and they can acquire Laika for a lot of money. And I think that even though this film hasn't done necessarily well at the box office, doesn't mean that it's not going to find its audience on streaming and other ancillary markets. And it does add to the overall value of Laika as a studio. I mean, remember, The Shawshank Redemption didn't do well when it came out theatrically, and yet it's become a beloved movie over the years. It's sold many, many home video releases and on every format, and it plays on TV all the time. So it can be an earner. Yes.
But
I'm not saying this is
also
Shawshank
one of the
Redemption
greatest films of all time. So there's a little bit of an asterisk you got to put in there.
It's true. It's true.
But yeah, I mean, I think you're right, though. I think even if this one doesn't do well at the box office now, I think you raise a great point. The whole idea that it adds to the overall package value of Leica, because you're right. I haven't thought of it in those terms, Rob. Like when you look at now Leica, this is becoming a very attractive package for, maybe an exclusive streaming home to grab these things. So that's actually a really good point and something we should keep our eye on. All right, let's move on now to the third main topic today. Ashley, what's our third main topic today?
Next up is Ken T. Mills. I was wondering if you knew anything about this new Guillermo del Toro movie, Nightmare Alley. I hadn't heard anything about it until they announced today that Leonardo DiCaprio is going to star in it. I completely love The Shape of Water and have been waiting for another film from del Toro. Do you think this can live up to his previous work with DiCaprio working with him?
It's funny. It's hard to imagine with as busy as Guillermo del Toro is, as often as we hear Guillermo del Toro's name in the news, that he hasn't directed a film since The Shape of Water, which, by the way, he won Best Director for and won Best Picture as well. But it is weird to think about that. Hearing him working with Leonardo DiCaprio just seems to be the guy who just works with all the best directors, and all the best directors want to work with him. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about this Nightmare Alley project that they're working on, this is something that they've been talking about for a while. Anyway, the novel follows, it's based on a novel of the same name, Nightmare Alley. The novel follows the exploits of Stanton Carlyle, a ruthless hustler who learns the tricks of the carny trade and uses them to establish himself as a spiritual guru, preying on the wealthy and on the weak, which now, if that doesn't already sound great enough as it is, there you go. But now put this, I like stepping back and really appreciating the context of things. We're talking about a partnership of two of the greats right now. Truly one of the great actors of our generation in Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the truly great filmmakers of our generation, Guillermo del Toro. I mean, if you just go down a list of highlights of these guys' careers, Leonardo DiCaprio, 5 Oscar nominations for acting. All right. He's got another one as a producer, but for acting, 5 Oscar nominations for acting. He, of course, got his win for The Revenant. Now, we know, Leo's big, but seriously, let's just appreciate the list of work that he's done. The Revenant, Wolf of Wall Street, Django Unchained, Inception, The Departed, Catch Me If You Can, Gangs of New York, among others. Then you look at a guy like
decade.
And that's just in the last decade. Then you look at a guy like Guillermo del Toro, who's got a mix of artistic and geeky fan-based stuff, all kind of mixed in. How many directors can say that? Not a lot. He's got 4 Oscar nominations as a filmmaker with 1 win. He's got The Shape of Water. These are just films he's directed. And look at the diversity in these. Shape of Water, Pacific Rim, Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy and Hellboy 2, Blade and Blade 2. This guy's got a diverse package of work as a director. You're putting these two guys together. Rob, I got to tell you, even if it wasn't for the interesting sounding synopsis, and it is a really interesting sounding synopsis, to see a Leonardo DiCaprio play a character like this sounds super intriguing to me. We haven't really seen him do something like that other than maybe in Django Unchained. This sounds fascinating to me. These two guys working together, to me, is an outstanding proposition. I'm excited for it. What do you think?
Well, I just want to mention that this movie was made. This is actually a remake. The original Nightmare Alley was made in 1947 with Jerome Power. And I've seen the original film, and I really like it because he's like they talk about him being a carny. I don't know how it was in the original book, but he was like a mentalist, pretending he could read, and I like this movie. I remember seeing this movie first when I was a little kid. And because, you're talking, my grandparents gave me like a magic set, and I was really into.
Nice.
I had no adeptness to be a magician. My sleight of hand skills were 0. So this is definitely a character study, this film. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what DiCaprio does, because I loved a movie that a lot of people don't like, but I love, was Shutter Island,
Yes.
and I don't want to
ruin that. Directed by Scorsese.
Film. Yeah. And he was so great in that. And while the movies don't really have anything to do with one another, they're sort of, in a way, have an element that kind of links them together, I guess. And I can't wait to see his portrayal of this character. I didn't know it was based on a book, to be honest. So I'm excited. I want to go get the book now and read it.
Ashley, you're hearing the synopsis about this. You're hearing about a Guillermo del Toro, Leonardo DiCaprio working together. Does this pique your interest at all? What do you think about this?
Oh, absolutely. I look at the list of these two guys. I mean, it's incredible. But yeah, Del Toro's, his ability to create fantasy on the screen. And when this subject matter comes together with such an amazing lead actor, I feel like it's gonna, I mean, I can't see it going wrong. It's going to be so interesting. And I feel like it's going to be like really visually satisfying too.
Yeah. When you look at his
that
films,
whole world, the Carney world and stuff.
but when you look at the worlds he creates in Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth, Pacific Rim, like he knows how to, you're so right, Ashley, he knows how to just craft, because a lot of him as a filmmaker, he just has these sketchbooks that he keeps with him, and he's constantly sketching out. He's a very visual thinker, and he just has that innate ability to create these magnificent worlds. And for him to go into a world like this one, I think it's also going to be really visually interesting as well. I think you're bang on that. All right, let's move on to main topic number 4. What's next?
All righty. Next one up is from, we got Sarah Faye. Hey guys, John, I loved your Avengers Endgame review. It was refreshingly open and honest. But now that Rob has seen it too, I was hoping you guys could discuss the movie in non-spoilery terms to give us a sense of where you guys may differ in your impressions of the movie. Thanks.
Yeah, so I have been lucky enough now that I have seen Avengers Endgame twice. I was there at the premiere. I went to the press screen the other day, and I had myself a +1. I thought, who would like to see this movie?
Oh, dude.
I bet Robert Meyer Burnett would like to see this movie. And so Robert came along with me too. And we sat down and watched ourselves some Avengers Endgame yesterday. And Rob, I mean, I had to reel you in a little bit there at the beginning, but it's time. I just tell people generally your overall impressions of Endgame.
First of all, I want to give you one of these as a thank you for taking me to the press screening, because that was just fantastic. We went on the Disney lot. I have to tell you, Kevin Smith said it best. I think this movie left me shook. And I was shook. There is a brief sequence before even the Marvel Studios logo comes on the screen. I was shook from that. I was shook throughout this whole movie. I was stunned by it. I teared up multiple times, like throughout the movie. From the beginning all the way through, I was getting teary-eyed at inopportune moments. I was like kind of looking around like, are you looking at me, John? I was trying to like dab my eyes and make it not obvious, like I had to sniffle or something. But no, it was, I had to get I had to wipe away the mist from my eyes throughout this film. And it wasn't all because necessarily sad things were happening. There was just so much happening that I loved. I mean, this movie might just be, like I said earlier, that not since the Eagle landed on Tranquility Base, when America first landed on the moon on July 20th, 1969, has anyone stuck the landing, I thought, the way this film did as far as the MCU is concerned. I mean, this is Return of the King. This movie is so wildly entertaining to me. And I know, you had talked about how the first couple hours was up and down for you, but I loved the first couple hours because I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. Like, normally when you see movies like this, you're like, yeah, you kind of in the back of your mind, you kind of know where it's going to go. But everything, like with Infinity War, I was like, I want these certain things to happen. I want them to touch on certain things in Infinity War. And they pretty much did. And this movie did all of that for me as well. Like everything I might have wanted to have happen. Like we've talked about, not everything. I mean, there were certain things that I was completely wrong. Like you had said you were wrong about. I too thought for sure things were going to happen in this movie that did not. But that didn't bother me because the stuff that did happen was such a delight. And I was just like, I really couldn't believe what I was watching half the time, just because of the ambition and the sheer entertainment value. And like you had said, by the time this movie gets to the final hour, I mean, talk about Ghibli. I mean, my inner guttyworks, as Alec DeLarge would say in A Clockwork Orange, was almost like somebody put me in a blender and just turned the blender on. That's how my emotions and my heart and my senses and everything. I was just sitting in this movie, I loved it. And I can't wait to see it again. And by the end of the movie, when the credits rolled, I'm like, that was an experience. That was just an experience. And so often that's, I think, what we're always hoping for. Movies that I would consider, like we talked about, Shawshank Redemption certainly was an experience. The Lord of the Rings movies were an experience. I mean, we've talked about Gandhi. I remember when I saw Gandhi, a movie I didn't want to see when I was a kid, but I figured obligated to go do it before the Oscars. That was an experience. Lawrence of Arabia, you felt like, and even though this was the culmination of a 22 It's a 20-second film in this arc. It accentuated everything that had came before, and it just, by the time it was over, I was like, my God, what an achievement all of these things were. And let's face it, if you go back and you think what it was like 10 years ago, Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, these were not characters that people considered to be big screen motion picture characters. They were animated characters, and when we'd seen them before, whether it was in the Incredible Hulk, when we saw the Thor and the Incredible Hulk, not so great, or when they talked about Thor and the Adventures of Babysitting, that was an ongoing joke. Who would have thought that we would have seen what we got to see? And I like I said, shook is the word. It's like grease being the word, but shook is the word that you heard. It's got move, it's got meaning. Bump, bump, bump.
Like I said, to me, the final hour of this movie, and I'm curious to know what because you and I didn't talk about this. I'm curious to know, like, I came out and I said, I believe that the final hour of Avengers Endgame is the best hour in the history of not the Avengers movies, not of the MCU movies, but in the history of the genre. I don't think there's ever been one complete hour that has been so thrilling, exciting, emotional, tear-jerking, jumping out of your seat worthy, like overall experience. We keep using that word experience for it. I don't think there's ever been a single hour in the history of the genre that can match the final hour of Endgame. It's absolutely thrilling to me. Now that you've seen it, I meant to ask you, do you concur with that, or do you think that still holds some stiff competition?
Dude, I mean, no, I would agree with you. I'm like, even like in the first 2 hours, there were scenes in this movie where literally two people are sitting on others, each opposite of a table, and they're just having a conversation. I was so riveted by how they dealt with all of the things that had come before. I mean, there was stuff that happened in this movie even before we get to that point where I'm like, oh my God. Like, I was like, wow, and I by the time you get the end of this movie, I was just sitting there going, I can't believe. It was kind of like when I first saw the first Avengers. There were times when I saw the first Avengers, I'm just sitting there thinking, I can't believe this actually exists. And to still feel that way, years later, this has been going on for now, we're into the third decade of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The last hour of this movie, I'm just like, if the Starship Enterprise had shown up and if Kirk, Spock, and McCoy from 1966 beamed into the end of this movie, it wouldn't have surprised me. I mean, it was so amazing. I was just sitting there watching this going, I can't, I mean, when they got the first script,
careful.
Well, no, but when they got the draft from Marcus and McFeely, I mean, I don't know. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in Kevin Feige's office just when he was paging as the producer of these movies, as he's reading this script going, we're supposed to do what? Like, I can't even imagine the people when they first read, here's the script, guys, this is what we're shooting. They must have, what did the Russo brothers think? I can't even imagine how they wrapped their heads around this, but thank God they did. Because man, oh man, all I can tell you, John, is I can't wait, because it's 6:00 tomorrow night. I'm in the Cinerama Dome with a packed house of nerds like myself, lifelong nerds that are diehard nerds. They're going to geek the F out. People are going to go bananas when they see this movie. Bananas.
Yeah, I think a bunch of people will. And it's funny, we've got some negative reviews coming into and stuff like that, but honestly, I think for the vast majority of people. Now, where you and I will differ a little bit is on the first two acts of the film. Because I concur with you that there are some really cool moments in the first act of the film that make you go, what? Like, that sort of thing. That definitely has those moments. And however, to me, there's also a few moments in the first couple hours of the film that kind of counter that are some things that I thought were a little bit problematic in the first two acts of the film. And it certainly didn't detract from the movie overall. I think it kind of balanced itself out. So I was like, okay, first 2 hours, okay. There's some really, really good stuff, some things I'm having some problems with, whatever. But man, when it gets to that final hour, I don't know that there was a moment that either my fists weren't clenched and I was like ready to jump out of my seat, and either my jaw was down in my lap or the pins of my mouth were all the way up at my ears. Like my whole body was tense like the entire last hour. So when it gets to that part, I mean, that's where the real payoff is for me. That's where, for me, that Avengers Endgame as the 22nd film in this franchise really did, as you were saying, sticks that landing, and very satisfying.
I have to say, though, you brought up some really cogent and salient points about the first 2 hours that I was not thinking about until we discussed it. Well, I'm not going to say what it is.
Yeah,
but
on Sunday we'll talk about on our open spoiler discussion on Sunday. We'll talk about them.
There's a whole part of this film that I'm very curious to go re-examine as far as logic. I want to bring a pad and paper as far as logic is concerned. And I think you're
making the charts and
yeah, you're absolutely correct about that. But when I was watching it, I wasn't really aware. I wanted to scream "F yeah" so many times in this movie. I mean, and dude, I mean, talk about an ending. I mean, if you want to, like the way they were able to truly put a bow on these 22 movies, if they never made another Marvel movie again, you could walk away from this and think, oh my God, this is one of the most staggering achievements in Hollywood history. It's never been done before. No one's ever attempted it. Yeah. And like I said, not since we landed on the moon. That little LEM that landed on the moon, the Lunar Excursion Module, set down on Tranquility Base in 1969, has anyone stuck the landing the way they did with this movie.
Well, hey guys, listen, Rob and I, that's us just discussing in very non-spoilery terms, not giving anything away, but don't forget, guys, this Sunday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, Rob and I, we might even be joined by Ann in here, Rob and I are going to be having our full, open, spoiler-filled discussion with you guys joining us about Avengers Endgame. Make sure you join us for that. I'm sure we're probably going to go 4 or 5 hours long, but it's going to be fun. I cannot wait. So much to talk about. About this movie, and I hope you guys will join us for that. Okay, with that down, let's get on to the final main topic today. Ashley, what's our final main topic?
Next one is from Jimmy Neutron with Avengers Endgame now upon us. It's got me thinking about Spider-Man Far From Home. After Infinity War, there seemed to be a little bit of MCU hangover, and Ant-Man 2 only managed to make just over $600 million at the box office. Do you think the same hangover could hit after Endgame and affect Spider-Man? I know you were predicting Far From Home could hit $1 billion, but do you think coming right after Endgame could hurt its chances?
All right, so there's a big question come out because it is weird to think, Rob. You were just talking about how, like, if there was no other MCU film after Endgame, what a pin in it. Well, there already is one, and it's already made, and it's coming and going to be in theaters in just a couple of months, which is radically weird when you think about that. We got Spider-Man Far From Homecoming. Now, Far From Home. not to be confused with Spider-Man Homecoming.
I see what you did there, John.
So what can we expect? Now, after Infinity War, you're right. We got Ant-Man, or Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man 2. And Ant-Man 2 did not blow I mean, it was a big hit, but it didn't threaten joining the $1 billion club. It didn't blow the doors off the barn or anything like that. So could that spell something negative, perhaps, for Spider-Man Far From Home? Was there a little bit of not Avengers or MCU fatigue, but could there have been, like, after Infinity War, we just had such a big surge of energy with Infinity War that everybody needed a breath and just people skipped out on Ant-Man 2? And could the same thing now befall Spider-Man Far From Home? I don't think that's something to worry about, Rob, and I'll tell you why. Because if we're looking at the precedent, which was Ant-Man, and how it did after Infinity War, well, take into consideration how the first one did. I mean, look at this. The first Ant-Man came out. It had an opening weekend of $57.2 million, right? And then it went on worldwide to make $519.3 million. Not bad. A big hit, actually. Big hit for them. Fabulous. The second one exceeded it in every way. The opening weekend, almost 20 million more opening weekend at a $75.8 million. That's a huge bump. And then over 100 million more worldwide by the end of its run with $622 million. So we go from the first film and go into the second film, and we actually see the second film taking significant jumps up from the first one. Did Infinity War hurt Ant-Man? I think the numbers say that no, it did not hurt Ant-Man. If anything, it helped, but at worst, it was a zero sum. It had no influence on it because we saw increases in its worldwide total. We saw increases in its opening weekend total. Now, I think Ant-Man 1 was a better film than Ant-Man 2, but other than that, the numbers just went up. So if we're looking at precedent then now as we come into a Spider-Man Far From Home, well, Spider-Man Far From Home had a magnificent opening weekend. It went on to make over $800 million at the worldwide box office. I got to tell you, my thought that Spider-Man Far From Home will be the next member of the $1 billion club, after Endgame, of course, I'm still holding on to that. And no, I don't think that the adrenaline rush of Endgame is going to hurt Spider-Man Far From Home. Maybe it'll help, but even if it doesn't help, it'll be a zero sum. And I think Spider-Man is just going to go, because remember, people loved that first Spider-Man film. He has a great role in Infinity War. We're now going into Far From Home. The first trailer was fantastic for it. Everybody's excited. Now, I don't think this is going to have a negative impact at all. Rob, what do you think?
I don't think it's going to have a negative impact at all either. And I'll tell you something. By the end of Endgame, it made me really curious how Far From Home is going to work. How is it? There are questions that will be in your mind about Spider-Man going into Far From Home, and I'm really curious what those answers to those questions are going to be. I mean, I thought, again, it just added to my love of Endgame and made me more fascinated about how the MCU is going to go ahead, how they're going to do it. And Spider-Man's one of those big things I had in my mind. I'm like, how are they going to do that? And I'm really curious. I'm more excited to see Far From Home than ever, frankly. Can't wait. And I think it's gonna join the $1 billion club, John. I do.
Yeah.
If it's great,
too.
if it's good.
I do too. And then we are going to have 3 MCU movies in a row if Spider-Man can do it. Because listen, it's a foregone conclusion that Endgame is going to join the $1 billion club. The question is, will it join the $1 billion club in 1 week? So Spider-Man will mark the first time, I believe, that we'll have 3 MCU movies in a row join the $1 billion club. Because while Captain Marvel has joined the $1 billion club, Endgame is going to join the $1 billion club. It's going to join the $2 billion club. And then Spider-Man Homecoming, if it can do what we think it'll do, it'll be 3 in a row. And then we'll have to see which movie comes next. All right, guys, that's it for all of our main topics today. But as we like to do here on the John Campea Show, we want to hear from you guys. Now it's time for us to take your live questions and thoughts. You guys have already been firing in a whole bunch of them. So Ashley, let's get to it. What are we starting with off here today?
All right. First super chat is from Matthew Williams. How misleading were the trailers?
I'm not going to go into specifics, but not at all. Very, very, very little. There are a couple of scenes that are just like, oh yeah, they must have done a little bit of this in this shot, a little bit of some, but for the most part, nowhere near like what they did for Infinity War. Rob, did you, without going into specifics, did you see anything major that stood out as a major misdirect?
No, and as a matter of fact, what surprised me about the movie is well, I don't want to say, but I was surprised at how, let's say, they didn't fuck around with us. Or mess around with us. They didn't F around with us. Sorry for swearing. But I was surprised by that. And again, that was just another thing that surprised me about the movie as a whole.
You and I were discussing a while ago, the comments came out from the Russo saying, yeah, we purposely build in big misdirects. And you and I speculate, we said, I have a feeling them saying there's misdirects is the misdirect. And I think it kind of works out that way. All right, what's next?
God, my anticipation and curiosity was already at a 10, and now it's like at a 20 because of you guys. And I'm like, and I'm so glad you said they nailed the landing, because I'd rather watch a bad couple of first acts and a satisfying ending than the reverse, personally. I'm so happy you said it was satisfying.
Let me say this too, and I don't think this is giving anything. This isn't giving anything away. But I will say this. One of the strengths of the MCU has been, despite the fact that they made 15 films, 19 films, 20 films, 21 films, that you really could, I felt with almost all of them, you might miss out on some things, but you can really walk in and have any of the MCU movies be your first MCU movie. I mean, I really feel like the job they did with Infinity War, you could walk in. Now, it would be very beneficial to catch Guardians of the Galaxy first, to watch Civil War first, but if you just walked in and watched Infinity War, you'd be okay. Endgame, and there's good reason for this, and it's very justifiable. But I will say, I think Endgame is the one film in the MCU so far where I feel like, yeah, you can't walk into Endgame cold. You can't. You're going to need some of the previous films for that. But you know what? When you're the closing chapter of a 22 film arc, that's understandable. That's okay that they did that, and it pays off. But you do have to watch a number of the films beforehand if you're going to get the same level of appreciation and experience that Rob and I are talking about. You do have to have some of those films under your belt. And that'll be a good topic for some point, Rob, that we should probably put together a list of 5 prerequisite films you got to watch in the MCU before you go ahead and watch that one. So maybe we'll get around to that one. Maybe tomorrow. Who knows?
But you really need to see Infinity War before you see this.
Oh, 100%. 100%. That's got to be one of them. All right. What's next?
Kind of leads us to the next one. Vinder, can Endgame be enjoyed as much by casual MCU fans, or is it aimed specifically at hardcore fans?
You know what's interesting there, Vrinder, is you put in the term "as much." That kind of throws a little bit of wrench in it. It's like, can casual MCU fans go in and watch this and appreciate it? Absolutely, 100%. I don't know, Rob, how you feel about this. I feel like they did put enough in there, like certain things that you'd need to be more of a hardcore fan to really fully appreciate some of them. So you know what, Vrinder, since you're using the phrase "as much," I'll go maybe not as much, but still totally fully satisfying. But I think the hardcore fans are going to get just a little bit more out of it. What do you think?
I agree too, because there's a lot of, let's just call it, as the late John Schnepp would say, there's a lot of flavor in this movie.
Yeah, there is.
And if you've seen the all of the MCU movies, there's a lot of flavor that you're going to appreciate that the casual fan might not know, but that doesn't mean that the casual fan, wouldn't enjoy it. But there's a couple of really great moments that for the hardcore devotees of the whole MCU are very satisfying moments. And it's not just fan service, it's very clever, very thoughtful moments that reward longtime viewers. And the audience we saw it with, there were a couple times where there were audible cheers in the audience because of those moments. And very, very richly earned.
All right, what's next?
Raven 415-2001. Ashley, my dear, if you are there, I consider myself to be a gentleman. So please let John read the rest of this. John?
So Robert, were you able to drain the main vein and make it through the whole movie? I can answer that for you. He did. He did not move.
No, to be honest, John and I, we stopped. We had sort of a power lunch. We didn't have a lot of time to eat. So I sucked down 3 Diet Cokes, which is, of course, a diuretic. So by the time I got to the theater, I was ready. And I drank water on the show before that. So I had 4 sizable drinks. I was able to hit the head and, in fact, drain the main vein to the point where I was empty and ready to go. No problem at all. 3 hours, bang. And by the way, you're not even going to want to be distracted by your bladder telling you, hey, buddy, you gotta help me out here. Don't drink a lot before and then power it all out before you see the movie, because, man, you don't want to leave. There's no time to go to the bathroom in this movie. Not a moment.
I disagree with that. I think there are some parts in hour 2 that you would be okay if you snuck out for 2 quick minutes. But all other things being equal, be like Rob. Be strategic, plan it out, and put yourself in the best position to succeed, because all other things being equal, you're not going to want to miss a minute. All right, what's next?
But don't drink beers before and then break the seal, and then all of a sudden you're
that's the worst.
Yeah, don't go if you do that. Don't go first. C10 Joker, I don't know if it would be a spoiler to answer this, but is there canon fodder in Endgame? I feel that we've always seen it in the theater, in the trailers for the other Avengers films, but I don't know if we ever saw it in the trailers for Endgame.
And C10 Joker, that's a really generous super chat. Thanks for supporting the channel, C10. Oh, God.
Cannon fodder.
I know the answer to this question. I just don't know if I can answer the question.
I don't think you can.
Let me see if I can think of a way to answer it without giving anything away. I don't know that there is a way to do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I feel horrible C10 Joker, but I can't answer your question. What I will say is this. There is a really good amount of very satisfying action in the film.
Yes.
There's a really good amount of very satisfying action in the film, but to the specifics of your question, I just know I wouldn't consider the answer to this question a spoiler, but I know there would be some people who may. So I want to be sensitive to that right now. So come on back on Sunday when we do our open spoiler discussion, but I feel like I can't give a specific answer to that.
By the way, people who spoil this movie are real assholes. They really are. They've been doing it in my feed all day long before I got on the show. And I'm just like, what kind of adolescents are you? Like, really, grow up.
Yeah. They could be adolescents.
They are. I mean, it's really lame.
But the loser kind of adolescence, yeah.
It's really. I have to say, it's because this movie is so enjoyable. And look, you're still going to enjoy it, even if you've heard spoilers. It's still so enjoyable. But the fact is, why would anybody want to diminish the experience of this? You seldom get a movie in your lifetime that's as fun to watch as this is. So why diminish that for people?
Because some people are such hackers. Losers. That's all they have.
It's kind of like hackers, It's like they just want to break your computer for no reason or spread viruses around the world. You're like, why? I don't understand.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Bender, are the first 2 hours a slow burn, or is there still plenty of action?
Again, that's not something we can answer. All I will say is that there is a lot of good stuff in the first 2 hours. There is a lot of good stuff. I also believe there's some problematic areas, but there's definitely a lot of good stuff in the first 2 hours as well. So, but again, I'll say this. I wouldn't consider the first 2 hours a slow burn. Let's say that. I would not consider the first 2 hours a slow burn.
No, so in fact, the pacing of this movie is extraordinary. And I was everything that happened, I was completely riveted. I was literally, even when people, like I said, were sitting at tables talking, I was on the edge of my seat going, where's this movie going to go next? Because it always surprised me. I was always wow.
What's next?
Raven, better 80s theme song, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, or DuckTales?
I honestly thought the TMNT theme song sucked. I'll go with DuckTales.
Me too.
DuckTales.
Glad we're in agreement on that one.
Yeah, we got to go on that one. All right, what's next?
All right, for the 25th consecutive Stanley Cup playoffs, a team from Canada will not win the cup.
I was in a foul mood last night, like a foul mood. Like I cordoned myself off in my office last night. Leafs lost in Game 7, a series they should have won. I predicted they would win. They lost that series shouldn't have even gone to Game 7. They choked, they blew it, and another year where American teams filled with Canadian players will win the Stanley Cup, but not a Canadian team. And I was in a bad mood last night when the Leafs lost. Anyway, thanks for rubbing it in, Murray. All right, what's next?
My friend's team lost too, and he had a huge beard, and he shaved it and filmed it, and he was crying.
Oh.
It was hilarious. It was great. RJ, Technovine, John, none of us in the theater kept still in the third act. We were all going bananas. People got up to jump for joy. I'll be back for one more show on Friday.
It is, listen, guys, I don't know how I can overstate it. The final hour of this movie is the single greatest hour in the history of the genre. And it's not just a scene. It's like everything that happens in the last hour is so well crafted and so satisfying. You're right, RJ Techno. It's everything we've already said. It's all of that and more. And I cannot wait to see it again on Thursday night and just watch the audience. Kind of like the way that my third and fourth and fifth screenings of Infinity War, I just got in there, and then my main point was just to watch the audience when the snap happens and watch everybody's reactions. I'm going to be in that theater on Thursday night. And when we get to that last hour, I'm just going to be watching everybody and watching the reactions when this happens. And then when this happens. Oh, and when that happens. And that's what I'm going to want to be watching everybody. And totally. Yeah, man, the response is going to be huge. All right, what's next?
I'm going tomorrow night. I can't wait. Paul, saw Endgame last night in Austria. I really enjoyed it, but I have to say it's only my third favorite Avengers movie after the first one and Infinity War.
You know, that's exactly where I am, Paul. But you got to understand how much, to me, the first Avengers movie is the greatest comic book movie of all time. So there's no shame in coming behind that. And I love Infinity War. I put it ahead of Age of Ultron, which I also really like. I really like Age of Ultron. I have Endgame above that. But, dude, listen, whether you agree with what Paul and I are saying, what testament is it to the MCU and the Marvel Cinematic, the Avengers films specifically, and the MCU as a whole, that we are getting a movie like Endgame, and we're debating whether it's even the third best in the specific franchise? What a testament to how the overall quality of the MCU, what Kevin Feige has delivered. It's astonishing, because almost any franchise, if you saw a movie like Endgame, you would come out and going, this is the best film of this franchise. There would be no discussion. There would be no debate. This is the best film of this franchise. But Kevin Feige has done such a job with this thing that we now have to discuss it and debate it. And it was like, that's how crazy this is. And that's how good of a job they have done with the MCU. It's absolutely astonishing to me, Rob. Like, I just, it's when you see this movie and then you take a step back and go, oh yeah, it's not even going to be in the top 2 for a few people. Like, can you think of another franchise that has that type of overall consistent quality that you can get a movie like Endgame and it's maybe the third favorite of the franchise? Like, can you think of another one like that?
No. And, it's funny because if I have what I wanted from this movie is I want, like we had with Return of the King, I want to see a 4-hour version of this movie, because I know there had to be a lot more shot that they've got to pare it down and turn it into. Of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, I want to see the 4-hour version of this movie, because I know there's got to be a lot more character stuff that they shot. And I mean, I can't imagine the embarrassment of riches they had with this film, because I would have watched that last hour for another hour. It was, but like you said, I thought it was amazing. But again, it's like people who this week's episode of Game of Thrones, I guess last week's, people talk about how, they called it a filler episode, and you and I are like, what?
Which is just ridiculous.
What I loved about this film is before the last hour, what we got was all of this character setup, and there was lots of pathos and storytelling and backstory, and there was all kinds of buildup. And I'm just as fascinated by that. I don't need, the last hour was unbelievable, but to me, I find things just as interesting. Like I said, if two people are sitting at a table talking, that can be to me just as riveting as a big action sequence.
Absolutely.
And I think that, the choices this movie makes are like, wow, they constantly surprise me. I did not expect them to be where they were going to be or do what they were going to do. And I think a lot of people, that expect constant mayhem, that's not what this movie is. It's a different kind of movie.
And it's not good filmmaking. That's just not good filmmaking.
Right. And it's different. I'm glad, I'm sure the reason to split this movie up the way they said, it's really, Infinity War was a movie more than ever with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And then this film is different. This film deals with the ramifications. It's like events in your own life. When somebody, or in real life, when someone wins the Super Bowl, the season's over. Then you regroup, you go back to practice, and you start again. The new season is a new story. And I really appreciated that that's what this movie was. It didn't feel so much as a continuation of Infinity War as a new story. And I love that about this movie.
And, I think that's got to be emphasized here a lot. When we go back to when they originally changed the names of these movies, and, Feige made it clear, it's because this isn't part 1, part 2. These are two different films. It's not, like we had this big debate on my shows at the time. It's like people say they split the next Avengers into 2 parts. It's like, no, it was always planned as 2 movies. And then Kevin Feige made that clear. And then somebody wrote to me on social media yesterday saying, well, John, wouldn't you say that this is really one movie just split into 2 parts? Absolutely not. This movie is so down to the core of its DNA, is such a different film from Infinity War. It is such a different film from Infinity War. It is just in the tone and the texture and all that kind of stuff. It is a massively different film. And you're right, Rob. I'm so glad you keep pointing that out. Infinity War had a beginning, a middle, and a definitive end. It was its own isolated story. Endgame is certainly the next chapter, but it's its own story, and it plays out very differently and feels very different than Endgame.
Yes,
it is crazy. It's crazy to me that they filmed these 2 films. They filmed them back to back. They finished completing and they shot all of Infinity War. Then they went on and shot Endgame. That they were able to do that and make them feel so different. Like I don't know that I don't know a lot of filmmakers that could pull something like that off. Yeah,
And you know, there is, I'm not going to say what it is. I'll say what it is on Sunday. There was it's a small element, but there was an element in the film that came out of left field that they never address. It's one quick little thing. People will notice it. They're going to go, wait, what? I even said, I was like, at the end, I'm like, wait a minute. It was clearly from a dangling something that they've cut out of the film that they allude to early on. But and I was like, okay. And people are going to notice it. You can't not notice it for eagle-eyed viewers. And I was like, there was more to this movie and I hope of all the movies, I want to see an extended cut of this film because I know that there's things in it I want to see.
All right, we've got to move on here. We've got to move on here. All right, what's next?
Raven, 1.5 days until I see Endgame. Still spoiler free. What's the biggest movie moment you guys have had spoiled for you? Ashley, you look radiant as always. Oh, thank you very much. That's tough.
Biggest movie moment. I don't know. I mean, Han Solo coming out of nowhere to save the day in Star Wars: A New Hope. Theoden and the Riders of Rohan coming to the rescue in Lord of the Rings.
That you had spoiled for you.
Yeah.
I had spoiled for me. I really can't think of any big, serious, major, significant movie moments that I've had spoiled for me. I guess I'm really lucky that way. Rob, what about you?
I know. The end of Sixth Sense.
Oh, that was spoiled for you?
Was spoiled for me.
Oh, that sucks.
And yeah, I was bummed about that. And I'll tell you what's interesting, because a movie moment that wasn't spoiled for me, that I was Split. I didn't know at the end of Split that, spoiler alert, that Bruce Willis shows up and that it was actually a backdoor sequel or whatever to Unbreakable. So it was two Shyamalan films. One, a spoiler that I didn't get was the end of Split, and then the end of The Sixth Sense was spoiled for me. And, I didn't know what that meant when I'm like, what are you talking about? And then when the movie starts, I'm like, God damn it. I was so messed up. That was so bummed me out.
All right, let's move on. What's next?
Jerome Lim, is there a point in the movie someone can leave for the bathroom break and not miss anything significant?
I think there's a few moments in hour 2. You're not going to want to go during hour 1, and really you should be fine for hour 1 anyway, but there's a lot of really good setup in hour 1. You won't want to miss. I think there are a few parts in hour 2 that you could probably slip out quickly for a couple of minutes and be okay. Look, if you're feeling during hour 2 that you may have to go to the bathroom soon, don't try to hold out because you do not want to miss a second of hour 3.
Yeah, you don't.
Not a second. So my recommendation would be sometime in hour 2. All right, what's next?
Donnie Yasu, is it safe to say that Captain Marvel got Russo'd, aka this is the best of her incarnation so far?
Nope. I actually thought I think Captain Marvel's very good in this movie. I thought she was better in Captain Marvel. To be honest with you. Now, interesting thing to note here too that a lot of people still don't realize is she filmed her parts for Endgame before she filmed Captain Marvel. So it's interesting to say, but I would say no. The answer to that question is no. Rob, would you say yes or no?
I agree with you. And she's certainly, a lot of people said, oh, is she going to overshadow the rest of the Avengers? Absolutely not.
No, but she's good. She's good in this movie. We're not going to say anything more. All right, what's next?
Willow Yang, John, why did you hate Endgame? You didn't think it's the greatest film ever made, so that must mean you hate it. Why?
I know it is crazy, Willow, but that's what we live in. We always talk about today. This is the 10-10-10 or 0-0-0 generation. If people even slightly like something, it's the greatest thing ever, and it's a 10 out of 10. If you say it's a 9.8, people are going to look at you funny and say, "Why don't you like it?" I mean, it is crazy. We're seeing that pop up all the time, but it is what it is, Willow, and we see it rearing its ugly head all the time. All right, what's next?
Ben Rainer, saw Ferris Bueller on big screen, couldn't find Big Schnepp in parade scene. Have you ever found him in the scene? I loved seeing Ferris on the big screen, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, you can probably just search Google Images and you'll probably come across, and many people have posted it. He's in the big, parade scene, the dance scene, all that kind of stuff. He's in there. So you can probably if you just search Google Images, you'll probably find it. Rob, you've seen it, right?
I have seen it. It's a long time ago, though. Now I'm going to have to go Google it and put it on my masthead somewhere or something.
All right, what's next?
Donnie Yazoo, yes or no? Were there any standout scores?
Look, when I've said this before, I'll say it again. I've never found the Avengers score to be particularly great, but it has become great because now when we hear that ba 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 ba, ba we have an association with that music with all these great things that have happened over the years. So there's certainly a good amount of that. I'll get into it on Sunday, Rob. But you and I didn't talk about this. I'll get into it on Sunday. There was a particular choice for musical score in this movie that I thought was a terrible choice. And I'm not talking about song soundtrack. I'm talking about musical score used in a particular scene, involving Hawkeye and Black Widow. There's a particular scene therein where they choose a musical score for the scene that I thought was a poor choice, and it was such a poor choice to me, I actually found it distracting.
But and you're the song and dance man.
And I'm the song and dance man, but I understand why they chose it, but I think if they had thought about it, they would have realized maybe it's not a good selection or a good choice, but we'll talk about that more in depth on Saturday. Did you have any really big standout score moments for you, Rob?
Well, I really enjoyed the actual Alan Silvestri score, but there was a couple I was surprised because you don't normally associate the Avengers movies with source cues, meaning other music like pop tunes. There's a piece of popular music, I don't want to say what it is, early on from the 70s, I think.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
I was surprised. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like it tells you sort of right away that, oh, we're in a different kind of an Avengers movie, and I really did appreciate the particular use of this song. And you'll know it when you hear it. It happens, I think, in the first 10 minutes.
All right, what's next?
Raven, with the popularity of reunion shows like Roseanne, Will and Grace, would you guys rather see a reunion series of Seinfeld, Friends, or The Office?
I think Friends is more suited for a reunion movie, to be honest with you. Seinfeld, there was a time, but you know what? No, now I just kind of think it is its own diamond, already. The Office, absolutely. And when Steve Carell even hosted Saturday Night Live recently, they did a big long-running gag about it, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if they do that again sometime. Is there any one of those three that particularly stand out to you, Rob?
Well, to be honest, I've never, ever watched an episode all the way through of Friends in my life.
Really?
Never.
You got to.
It's surprisingly good. It's surprisingly good.
It was funny because I told my girlfriend Elizabeth this, and I was watching the first episode, and I did basically watch the first episode, and I was like, huh. But being that I did, I'm like, because I'm aware of those characters because they played such a large part of pop culture. I would love to see a Friends movie or show now. What are they doing now?
Friends is definitely it could be a movie just to like catch up and see how they're doing, but I wouldn't really want to see that. And then The Office, I wouldn't want them to do it because I don't want to spoil if people haven't finished The Office, but a lot of people left The Office. They're out of town. They don't even live there anymore. So I guess they would have to have Carell come back with some new characters. And then Seinfeld seems like the most logical one to me because they're just doing nothing all the time anyway, so we could just pick up right where they left off.
It really is a show about nothing. So
and like Julia Louis-Dreyfus is still like very relevant and
she's wrapping up Veep. She's wrapping it up, so there's some opportunity there. All right, what's next?
Grant Bilson, Rob, that was great. Saying F you to the user who almost managed to get you to say a spoiler. People are jerks. Thank you both for doing what you do.
Oh, so you had somebody in your live chat there, Rob, that was trying to get you to spoil the movie?
Yeah, well, there were trolls because I didn't have a moderator last night, and there were people that were just what people are doing now. It's hit and run spoiling. They're just dropping these sentence long spoiler. It's hit and run spoiling. They're drive by spoilers, and my whole thing with that is we need to live in a world of civility. Why not respect your fellow fans? Why do you
have no
feel
respect?
Why are you?
People have no
I
respect.
guess not. But why do you have to be a fan terrorist? Like, why do you have to do that? And it's I don't see any reason for it at all. It's to me, I find it. Look, there's other despicable things, far more despicable. But you know what? You're hurting your fellow fans. Why would you want to do that?
It is fan terrorism.
It is.
All right. I like that.
All right, let's go to the next.
Ant Banks 1984. Does the Avengers theme play during the last hour?
Well, the last hour of an Avengers movie, does the Avengers theme play? I think it's pretty safe to say yes. So yes, no problem. All right, what's next?
Very right. Rob needs a moderator on his show because some a-hole tried to slip a spoiler. SC? I don't know.
Super
luckily,
chat.
I heard nothing. Kudos to him on giving the guy the finger. LOL.
I did.
All right, what's next?
Jay Meister 25. Objectively speaking, Jeremy Renner and Paul Rudd's bromance is adorable. Glad there is a chemistry in front and behind the camera with these actors.
You know what's crazy, Jay Meister? I've seen it at other events and stuff like that too, but being at the Endgame premiere, it is crazy to see just how close this entire cast is. Like, they really are close. And for those of you who don't know, it's not an urban, you can see it, the photos. The OG 6 Avengers, they actually went out after Infinity War. They all got together, went out, and found a tattoo artist, and they all got an Avengers tattoo on them together. And I think there might be some reference to them being the original 6 in there. And then they gave the same tattoo to the tattoo artists. They gave that to themselves. They were like, it didn't turn out well. But you know what? If I could say, see this crappy tattoo? I got it from Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. and Jeremy Renner and Mark Ruffalo and Chris Hemsworth. They made this on me. It doesn't, so it could be crappy and I'd be totally down for it. But you're right. It is really cool to see just how tight all of them are, not just with the 6, but even with the extended cast, the camaraderie they had with Paul Rudd, with Brie Larson, with just moving it on, it just was really, really neat to see, and it just makes you appreciate the movie even more. All right, what's next?
This is kind of a three-parter. Curtis Lopez, seriously, thoughts and prayers to the theater workers this weekend, especially at AMC, with them doing 24 hours. Seriously, film fan community, be nice. Curtis, I made a similar post about this on Facebook, and someone replied he doesn't feel sorry for theater workers because they see the movie early. What? It's not like these people make $100,000 a year. They are in customer service. They will have to deal with angry, self-privileged, spoiled moviegoers.
Okay, first of all, Curtis, you're absolutely right. These people who work at these movie theaters, they have to put up with so much crap.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been there where, and there have been times that I've had to intervene, like that I've been at a theater and watching some idiot, you know, over something about, it's something minor, right? And just laying into some kid who's working a concession stand or working as an usher or working as a ticket taker or working as something, laying into some kid for something that kid had no control of and demanding that this kid do something that the kid has absolutely no authority to do. And there have been times that I've actually, and I try not to do this, I let people try to sell their own stuff and just step in and say like, hey, friend, like seriously, ease up. Back off. Like, I've had to step in and do stuff like that. And I'm sure a lot of you had the thing too. And the notion that these kids get to see the movie early, therefore all the crap and shit that they need to take from people is somehow validated is nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
To speak to that as well, practice the campground philosophy. Leave your movie theater in better condition than you found it when you arrived. Why does everybody leave their garbage in the aisles to be picked up? I don't leave my garbage around at home. I take my popcorn bags and my hot tamale box and my Diet Coke and empty containers and throw them away.
Yeah. And
why
look,
do you expect people to pick up after
just be nice to these people. They're there working, trying to give you a good movie experience. And I'm sure there's a million things going on and a million things that can go wrong. And just understand that if something goes wrong for you, it's probably not the specific fault of the person you're talking to. And look, I've been guilty of this too, talking to customer service reps online or whatever. And there's sometimes that I find myself getting upset and worked up too. We all do. But then I try to catch myself and go, and by the way, miss, I know none of this is your fault. I know this isn't you. So please forgive me if it sounds like I'm taking it out on you. I'm just really frustrated. You know, just be nice to these people. They're trying their best, and they're probably a lot of them are making close to minimum wage while doing it. So be a little grateful. Be a little grateful to these folks. Thanks for bringing that up, Curtis. I appreciate it. All right, what's next?
And while we're on it, I did a photo shoot in the park yesterday, and there was probably an acre of just trash from Easter the other day. Candy wrappers for days, Easter egg shells. I stepped on glass. Like, just pick up your trash, people. And you're teaching kids the wrong thing. So just pick it up and be a good role model. And that's all I'll say. Elm Rem, yesterday emergency surgery, today Endgame, and a 4K speed run with 500 people. No power in the verse is going to stop me.
Nice Serenity reference there. Hey, good on you. I hope. Well, clearly the surgery must have gone well. Not only if you're going to a movie, you can do a run, but that's some dedication right there. What's it, Elm?
Absolutely.
Absolute great. We salute you, sir. Good luck on your run, my friend. All right, what's next?
I'm upset. Do you think Sony's Venom verse is a good idea?
Well, considering everybody said Venom has no chance of succeeding because you can't do Venom without Spider-Man. And they did Venom without Spider-Man and made over $800 million. Look, does that guarantee a Spider-Verse is going to work? Or Venomverse is going to work? No. But is there enough practical evidence there to suggest it's a good thing to try? Hell yes. So yes, I would say it's a good idea. All right, what's next?
Ryan Lohner, Damian Lillard, totally insane.
Portland Trailblazer with the clock running down, 2 seconds left on the clock. He's like from a mile and a half away, heaves up a three-pointer, hits it to knock the OKC out of there. It was an impressive moment. It was really, I mean, it's not like it was game 7. They were already up in the series 3-1, but still, it's a nice way to win the series. That was a great shot. All right, what's next?
Luke, 1234, AMC in Covina is having a 2 a.m. showing.
Dude, look, when you get these big movies, a lot of theaters will stretch that out into 24 hours things. But the Covina AMC, I've been there once. I actually enjoy that theater. I hope you have a good time, man. Do you know that? Because that's the ticket you got? Hang in there, buddy. It's a long movie, my friend. All right, what's next?
The Entertainment Elite blog just watched Endgame last night and probably will tonight too. I definitely flailed, squealed, and peed a bit. I'm so happy I avoided spoilers.
Look, whatever ends up, I think this is fair to say, Rob. Tell me what you think. Whatever whatever your overall opinion of Endgame ends up being, because let's face it, it's a movie. Not everybody's going to like it. We've even seen some critics don't like it already. Fine.
What?
It's not for everybody. Yeah, there are some people that don't like The Godfather. So, but I think it's fair to say that even if Endgame doesn't work overall for you, I think it's safe to say there are still going to be moments where you are going to flail and squeal and maybe pee a little bit. And maybe that won't be enough to overcome all the other things in the movie that maybe you don't like, maybe. But I think even then, there are going to be moments that thrill you. And I don't know, Rob. I think there's definitely going to be people that don't like the movie, but I don't think there's going to be anybody that hates this movie. You know what I mean? There's just too much individual elements in this thing to like that even with the most negative perception of the film, people will look at it and say, okay, yeah, there are some big redeeming qualities. I think, is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say. What I've never understood is, as a lifelong fan of genre cinema, there are people that just poo-poo superhero movies off the cuff. I mean, it just doesn't work for them. Oh, this is just adults who like childish things and all of that. But I think it's such a ridiculous point of view to take, because superheroes are just another version of cops or lawyers or cowboys or any number of heroes. And the question is, are these movies approached well? Are they great stories well told? I think Endgame is a great story well told. If the genre doesn't work for you, or you can't believe in superheroes, I can understand how it wouldn't work. But if you can, and if you are predisposed to liking what we call cinefantastique, you're going to love this movie.
All right, what's next?
Raven, sorry in advance, Ashley. LOL. Many adulations to Rob for flexing his voluminous vocabulary with colloquialisms such as verisimilitude. I enjoy listening to a fellow sesquipedalian compatriot.
Somebody used a thesaurus. Somebody looked up a thesaurus. Well written. Rob, your response. And you can only respond in 6-syllable words or larger.
I need to consult the thesaurus to even answer that, to acquit myself admirably.
Okay, that means characterized by long words, long-winded. Sesquipedalian.
Well done, Ashley. Getting the research done there.
Delian? Sesquipedalian? That's cool. What a great word. Raven. I've never heard that word before. That's my new word. I got to go
word of the
figure
day
out how to pronounce it and use
Build
it.
That into the...
I think I butchered
All right.
it.
What's next?
Murray Reich, what do you recommend for me and my friends seeing Endgame Sunday first time? Headphones or earplugs? I don't want moviegoers coming out spoiling. We don't want to ruin it coming.
Yeah, here's the funny thing.
We saw this yesterday, right?
Yes, we did. Rob and I went to the Disney lot to watch and they have a couple of screening rooms on the Disney lot, but they have one main theater. So Rob and I went to a 1:00 press screening. Unbeknownst to us at the time, there was a 4:30 screening as well for press who couldn't make the 1:00. So we came out of the theater and we ran into a bunch of people we knew, and a bunch of them because you expect a crowd out front of the theater because you're just coming out, but I didn't realize at first, these are all people waiting to come in for a 4:30 screening. And honestly, I ran into Greg Alba, who's going to be joining us tomorrow, Rob. Greg Alba is going to be joining us tomorrow. And Greg Alba I didn't see him at first, but he called me, and he was literally standing like this. And there had to be about 20 other people just standing there with their fingers in their ears as people, because they knew all these people are going to be walking out charged up and talking about Endgame, and they're all standing there like this with their ears plugged. It was crazy.
Dude, I saw a friend of mine. I'm walking over to him. I'm like, dude, how could you believe? And he's like, no, I haven't seen the movie. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and you just assumed that he had just come out of the screening with us, right?
I felt terrible. I'm like, oh.
I'd say Bluetooth headphones with music playing on your phone. I think that's your best bet. And honestly, so if you're walking into the nice thing is, because we're not in the old and dark times where you have to line up for a movie, you've got pre-assigned seat. You can sign up. You can show up right when the movie's starting, walk into the theater, walk right to your seat. But if you got to be standing in a line somewhere, don't just plug your ears, not just earplugs. That may not do it. Headphones with music playing. That's probably your best bet, Murray. All right, what's next?
Marinil Alir. John, you should take a few days off after Endgame opening weekend. I hate to see you suffer and destroy your beautiful voice. Have an awesome day.
I have a beautiful voice. It's amazing. I'm actually thinking about it. I don't think I will, but Sunday is going to be a marathon because we've got our 4 or 5 hour Avengers Endgame open spoiler discussion. And then I have Game of Thrones. And then we got a Game of Thrones put all in the same day. It's going to be rough. So I don't know how I'm going to do Monday, but I'm going to try my best. But thank you for your well wishes. All right, what's next?
Jeff Crow, how many end credit scenes are there?
None. Robin, I was wondering because they didn't even show us credits at the premiere. And then we sat through the end credits at the press screening yesterday, and they didn't show any post scenes. They have done that to us once or twice before the press, where they chose a press screening, but they would edit out the post-credit scenes. It's only happened once or twice in 20-something films. But it kind of felt, Rob, you and I were talking about how it kind of felt like maybe they edited something out. But
yeah.
Then I got told by people all around the world were sending me messages saying, nope, we can confirm there's no post-credit scene. So there you go, guys. When it's bathroom time, as soon as the movie ends and the credits start to roll, you can safely run to the bathroom because apparently there's no post-credit scenes.
Although the credits themselves had sort of this, what they kind of did at the end of Star Trek 6, it kind of made me weepy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
nice.
Really, yeah. You might want to stick around for the first part of the credits, but then you're good to go. All right, what's next?
Preston Walden in 24 hours. Yes, nervous, excited.
Yeah, I'm hyped for you. I'm really excited for people who get to see it for the first time. You're going to come walking out of this movie just bumping up and down, Preston. Absolutely. Okay, what's next?
Preston, my local AMC will be showing for 24 hours. Wow.
Yeah, they did the same thing with the original Avengers, with the Phantom Menace. When you get these really, really big films, it's always neat to see when they start just opening weekend. They're just going to run it 24/7. It's always exciting. Hopefully, you get to see one at a not ridiculous hour. All right, what's next?
Murray, luckily I made up a great excuse to leave work early to see Endgame first time Sunday. My bosses can't see this because they don't know how to use the damn internet. LOL.
Yeah, I remember when Anne and I, earlier in our relationship, and I would take Anne to some special events. I remember there was this horrible moment. Sometimes she would call in sick, sometimes she'd do whatever, right? And then came this horrible realization when she started running into people at the company she would work with and go, your husband's John Campea? Oh, I love John Campea. I watch his shows all the time. And then all of a sudden she was like, I have to be very careful about how I do these things now. And it's yep. So yeah, be very careful, Murray. A lot of people watch this show, man. Make sure nobody that you work with watches this show, my friend. But good on you. Go out and see that movie, my friend. All right, what's next?
SD14, was Stan's last cameo worthy of being his last?
I'm not going to address that. All I'm going to say is this. Somebody asked me last night, was Stan's cameo good? All I can say is this. And this is what I said last night. I'll say exactly the same thing. It's good because it's Stan Lee, regardless. Whatever they had. I said they could have had a scene where Hawkeye was taking a walk down a neighborhood sidewalk, and on some lawn is Stan Lee in a tank top and underwear scratching his balls going, stay off my lawn. And we would all think it's the greatest thing ever because it's a Stan Lee cameo. So all I'm going to say is regardless of what the Stan Lee cameo is, we're going to love it. As far as whether I thought it was worthy or not, again, that would get me into talking about certain details of the cameo, and I'm not going to do that right now, so we can't. But all I'll say is that there was a good response from the audience when Stan Lee shows up on screen. There was a good response.
I really liked the context.
The context was quite good,
presented.
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, what's next?
Dave Higgs. John, thanks for the hard work. Ashley, thank you for always being a vision. Mr. RMB, thank you for the Ghibli comments last night. Cannot wait for Endgame.
And yeah, the count, I mean, it's here, guys. I mean, it's literally here. Most international friends are able to see it. Some saw it last night. They're able to see it today. Tomorrow's when our North American domestic audience they all get to go see it. We're literally here. We're here. The movie is here. Let the countdown to Lion King and Star Wars Episode 9 begin, because we're actually here now. We are in the end game now. All right, thanks a lot for that, Dave. What's next?
Patrick Conway, over under 40% 50-year-old virgin film happens, Rudd Runner.
Wouldn't that be great? But under, we're not going to get a 50-year-old version. How great would that be, though? I want to see the adventures of, what's it called, Sex Panther? 50% of the time, it works every time, or something like that? Oh, God, I love that line. All right, what's next?
Terrell Wise, is Thanos the main character of Endgame?
Can't answer that. Not gonna say. Not even gonna hint. Okay, what's next?
Jamie Lee 10 had a very familiar phenomenon to Toy Story 3 after. Did I miss something?
Do you have an idea what he's talking about?
Well, I think kind of the end of Toy Story 3 felt like an ending.
Oh, in relation to like Endgame,
the characters and how it was satisfying, maybe a satisfying conclusion to that trilogy. Which, by the way, I agree with. I love Toy Story 3.
Oh yeah. Oh God, that movie's spectacular.
And I thought the way it made me feel was kind of the same thing.
Only the third animated film in cinematic history to be nominated for Best Picture was Toy Story 3. All right, what's next?
Ziegler, would it be a spoiler to tell me if the first 20 minutes is a true statement about the Endgame trailers? If so, sorry, and thanks for what you do.
No, that's fine. We're talking about trailers. No, I can tell you that was absolutely false. Them telling us that everything in all the trailers was only going to be from the first 20 minutes of the film, I can tell you that's absolutely false. There is a bunch of stuff in the trailers that's from the first 20 minutes, sure, but there's a bunch of it that is not. I obviously won't tell you what those are, but nope, that was a big old lie. That was a big old lie. That is just not true at all. All right, what's next?
Ryan Lohner, the racism in Song of the South gets all the attention, but it also portrays drowning a puppy as just a thing kids do that no one cares about.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's got some. Yeah, it's got some questionable stuff in it. Let's just put it that way.
Just adding to the good choice to not put it on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Man, I don't even. Now, granted, it's been forever since I've seen Song of the South, but I don't remember. Oh, that sounds horrible, Ryan. That's horrible. Thank you for bringing it up. All right, what's next?
John Wick's dog. There's only one thing I know for certain. The crypts of Winterfell definitely are not safe.
Yes. Have these guys not seen any other movies? Have the people in Game of Thrones, it's like, oh, go down the crypts. You'll be safe there. No, you won't. No, you won't. Get on some boats. Put them on some boats and send them out to the middle of the ocean. That's where they'll be most safe. This is not a safe place to be, Rob. I don't think that's going to be a safe place to be.
Yeah, no, I don't think they've quite understood the power that the White Walkers possess.
And the power that the Night King specifically just... And all of a sudden, the crypt is filled with angry dead Starks. All right, well, it'll be interesting. All right, what's next?
Salazar Jr. John, were some spots in the Endgame trailer fake for the movie? Rob, I hope you enjoyed the film.
I did.
Where are we at?
The next one. I don't know.
So there's John Wick's dog, and then there's one from Anthony 89.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't have that. It says nothing here. It says retracted. I'll read it off there. Masterpiece and MOS should never be used together.
Come on, man.
That's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I mean, look, that doesn't mean you need to appreciate it, but there's a lot of us who do. So, yeah, never tell other film fans what they should and should not feel about another film. That's just not a cool thing to do. All right, what's next?
Anthony 89 seeing Endgame tomorrow and got a major spoiler.
That is unfortunate. I mean, there were some people, Rob, I know you got hit with one major spoiler. I got hit with a minor one that fortunately didn't. And it's really unfortunate because, not because it spoils the movie. It doesn't. There are a number of things you can find out that will not spoil the movie. It's just that it will spoil certain moments. It'll spoil certain surprises. And that's really unfortunate, man. And that's terrible. But anyway, don't worry, Anthony. You're still going to enjoy the film, but it does suck that happened to you. All right, what's next?
Now, Salazar. John, were some spots in the Endgame trailer fake for the movie? Rob, hope you enjoyed the film.
No.
For the most part, no. For the most part, the trailer is the trailer. There's a few little things they do, pretty inconsequential, but I understand why. But for the most part, no. The trailers are the trailers. There's a lot of things people thought, that trailer was a major misdirect with this and this and this, and actually it wasn't. There were some things that I suspected might have been misdirects, and they weren't. But no, for the most part, Rufino, the trailer is just the trailer for the movie, for the most part. At least 99% of it. About 99% of it. All right, what's next?
Malachi. So from your review, I got Avengers Endgame equals Adesanya versus Gastelum. LOL.
Yep.
First few rounds.
You actually did really good at pronouncing their names, Ash. That's not bad.
Right. All right. First few rounds are good. Feel-out rounds with a hint of genius, but that fifth round was one of the best you've ever seen.
God, that entire... By the way, the name's Malachi. The only reason I know that is because it's a biblical name, Malachi, that I used to say is an Italian biblical name, Malachi. But
yeah,
anyway.
I was like, Malachi. Yeah.
By the way, that fight on that card also had the Max Holloway versus Poirier fight, two of the best fights I've ever seen. Probably the best back-to-back fights on one card I've ever seen. And you're right. To me, Endgame is kind of like the first two rounds kind of feeling out. Some moments of genius, some problems, feeling out, and then you get to the final round. And that's when the explosions start to happen. That's when the dynamite starts to happen. That is the way I saw it, Malachi, and I completely appreciate that. And I love the name, by the way. I love that name, Malachi. By the way, very interesting biblical story, the story of Malachi. I won't go into that now, though. All right, we got time for just a couple more here, so let's fly through a few more here. What's next?
Hey, Train Gaming, how long do you think until Regal launches a subscription service for themselves?
I gotta believe it's going to be this year. To be frank with you, I thought would have been before now, but I do believe it's going to be this year. Remember, you got Cinemark doing it. You got AMC doing it with great success. You got Alamo Drafthouse now launching theirs. And remember, Regal is owned by Cineworld, which they're the forerunners. They're the originators of doing the movie membership cards in the UK. And they've been doing it for almost a decade. So yeah, and now they own Regal. I fully expect it's going to be this year. I'd be shocked if it wasn't this year, but I do expect it to be this year. All right, what's next?
My name is Blue. Who's the best drummer? Octopus, rabbit, or ant?
The rabbit from that James Marsden film. Was it Thumper? No, it wasn't Thumper. It was Thumper. I can't remember the name of it. I'm going to say that. The octopus was just banging some warbeat. Boom, 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 boom. The ant was just irritating. So I'm going to go with the rabbit. Rob, which one do you take?
Dude, the octopus was just playing the music that he had to play at the time. You know that guy could shred if he was doing if he was playing some Rush drum solo.
He ain't Neil Peart. He ain't Neil Peart.
Just like Neil Peart.
That is
that guy.
Heresy.
Neil Peart.
Heresy right there. Heresy right there. There is no other Neil Peart. By the way, one of the greatest moments in film history. Right? Another good Canadian boy. One of the great moments in movie history was the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie when there are aliens who travel around and they actually travel around with Neil Peart. And when people die, they say, Neil, play the drum solo of life. And Neil can bring the dead. Neil Peart, an animated Neil Peart, can bring the dead back to life with a particular drum solo he does. Neil, play the drum solo of life. That's amazing.
Who do you think taught the octopus to play in Aquaman? Neil Peart.
It wasn't Neil Peart, because it would have sounded better than that. All right, what's next?
David Tapia, is that right? Yeah. Is there anything better than NHL Game 7? Go Sharks.
Nothing. It's just... I got to evangelize this to my American brothers more. Hockey is the greatest sport to watch live. There is no better sport to watch live than hockey, and particularly Game 7. I mean, it's got all the speed. It's the fastest professional sport there is, but with all the intense physicality and just, you guys got to watch some live hockey, dudes. Got to watch some live hockey. All right, last question of the day, then we'll wrap it up. What's next?
David Nicholson, first super chat. Love the show. Got on YouTube to do my normal routine. Somebody posted a spoiler as the thumbnail. Ugh. Luckily, there was no context. I'm going on hiatus until tomorrow night.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to make it this long, David, and thank you for joining us, and thanks for sending a super chat, man. Yes, and you know what? That's the best attitude. It's like if you see a picture, remember you're like, don't think about it, don't dwell on it. Just like who knows what that means? Who knows when it's going to happen? And so it is unfortunate that it happens. But hey, man, you got this far without getting any. You're going to go in minimally spoiled, and I think that's okay. You're going to do fine, and I hope you have a really great time with it, man. Just make sure, God, people, please understand this. If you even get into this movie and you start to feel like you might have to go to the bathroom, do not wait for hour 3. Do not wait for hour 3. Sometime just pick a spot in hour 2. You'll miss some things, but I think you'll be okay to just miss 2 minutes. Do not wait for hour 3, David. Please make sure, or be more calculated like Rob was. Strategize, plan it out, have a plan, execute the plan, drain the vein, do whatever it is you need to do, but do not miss a second of hour 3.
And also, heed Ashley's advice: no beer before you see this movie. If you do break the seal, and beer drinkers know what Ashley meant by that, it's not a good thing. No beer. Drink some diuretics, some coffee, some Diet Coke, whatever it is, whatever your poison is, and drink a lot of it so you can just vacate, because you don't want to get up. I didn't want to get up, and I didn't have to get up, and it's better that you enjoy the movie without having to get up. Don't miss a thing.
All right, guys, listen. We've got messages there from Phoenix and Christian and Movie Idiot and all the way down. Do not worry, guys. We've run out of time for now, but I'm going to gather up all these questions and we're going to do a companion video for today. Your questions will get answered in a companion video today. Everybody who sent in those super chats, you're going to get answered today. Just keep your eyes open for a little bit later on in the day. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. I, of course, want to thank the great folks who've been here with me. First of all, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me, again, still being Ghibli until I see the movie again tomorrow. But find me on Burnett RM on Twitter. Find me at RM Burnett on Instagram, or find me on my own YouTube page, The Burnettwork, and its companion website, theburnettwork.net.
And, of course, also joining us, Ashley Whalen. Ashley, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me on my Instagram at Ashley Whalen and my Twitter at AshAttack1.
And, of course, you guys can follow me on social media simply at John Campea. That will do it for us for now, guys. Thank you again to all of you who sent in questions, for giving us some great things to talk about. We'll be back again tomorrow. Make sure you join us then. My name is John Campea, and until our next episode, guys, bye-bye.